good dance.
Okay, we're live. We did it. Hello, friends, and welcome back to
Yes.
Snark Friends. We are continuing to talk about these MCU Disney Plus TV shows because why not?
Mm-hmm.
That's our primary reason. I
Yes.
still actually don't
And
have
I
access to.
mean, we had a week off between WandaVision and this, and I missed you guys. I missed this. I missed hanging out. So,
Yes. Yeah, I dyed my hair last night while watching Snyder Cut while dedicating years of my life to watching the Snyder Cut, which we're also going to be talking about here tomorrow.
yeah.
So that's what I've been up to in the 2 long weeks, where we were talking to each other. I mean, we were talking to each other every day, but
Details. Yeah, I
yeah.
mean, that in the middle of like all of this DCEU stuff that we're doing. And since we last spoke, Nicole and I both have started rewatching all of the MCU movies.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm. It's very
uh,
exciting. We're both how I
dedication.
finished what was the last thing I watched? Civil War, I think, is where I'm at.
Yeah. I just finished phase one. So I stopped because the next thing I had to do was watch another Iron Man movie. And I haven't gotten over that hump. So
Yeah. It is a lot of Iron Man like right at the top. And it's just like why?
yes.
Like why do you do that to me? So
Why three Iron Man? I too
too
many.
many. It's too many. Yeah, it's better once they get more spread out. Once there's enough heroes that there's like
Yes.
we got this one, and once you do that one, you won't see for got a bunch of other people who got to get a movie in before we circle back. So,
Yes.
but yes, it's a lot of actually. Not only am I through Civil War, I also rewatched all of WandaVision first. So I rewatched WandaVision and then I started but that was like I don't know, I did that in a night. It's not that much. Anyway,
Yeah.
that's not none of that's what we're here to talk. I mean it's related because we're talking about MCU stuff. It's fine. It's not a complete tangent. It's also like setting expectations at the top though that really we're just here to hang out. Um,
Yeah.
but
Yes.
anyway, what we're talking about now is the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I don't even know what the
And
episode is called, so
it is called, wait, I thought it was just called episode one, but it's called New World Order. So it's my turn to do the synopsis. We start with Sam Wilson ironing his clothes and looking at the Captain America shield very somberly. He remembers Steve asking him how having the shield feels, and Sam says that it feels like it belongs to somebody else, and Steve says it isn't. And then we get the title card. And after the title card, we join Sam getting debriefed about a mission he's doing for the US Air Force. A criminal organization called LAF is targeting one of their military liaisons, and they want to subtly make sure that LAF doesn't deliver on their threats. And Sam is partnered with First Lieutenant Torres. So Sam jumps out of the plane and uses his, Falcon wings, and promptly finds that the threatened plane is already hijacked. It's already hijacked. So subtlety goes out the window, and we spend the next 9 minutes of episode watching Falcon beat up members of LAF in the air and between lots of rocks, and he ultimately saves the kidnapped military liaison. Later, mission complete, Sam and Torres eat and chat, and we learn or reaffirm a few key things here. So one is that Sam is working as a contractor for the Air Force, and he's got all of his Stark technology. Someone in the crowd recognizes him as an Avenger and thanks him for returning his wife like post blip. Taurus says that LAF is one of many groups trying to take advantage of like the post blip chaos and trying to make some money off of it. But there are other bad guys that they should be really worried about. And he's using his phone to scan around them until he finds like a red handprint on a wall. And the symbol belongs to a group called the Flag Smashers. Terrible name.
Listen,
And
I watched another movie last night where the bad guys called themselves anti reactionary terrorists. Like that's like how their description of themselves. So like, it's fine. Flag smashers, comparatively speaking,
we are a
not
group of
bad.
reactionary terrorists. Why is that like so in my head?
Anyway.
And the Flag Smashers are a group who think that the world was better during the blip, and they want a unified world without borders. Sam tells Torres to keep an eye out on these people. And Torres also mentioned that while he's out there, like on the internet, he's come across some crazy conspiracy theories about where Steve even is, because Steve Rogers is MIA. And one of those theories is that he's hanging out on the moon. I'm sure that will not be significant, but I'm just throwing that out there.
Listen, leave no stone unturned, okay?
We both watched the entire first bad and only season of Inhumans, so if there's a mention of the moon, I'm just gonna throw it out there.
Yeah, I just want to acknowledge. I mean, I'm pretty sure that the MCU, like all of us, is choosing to pretend that never happened. Seems to be the stance. We're all just. You watched Inhumans? No, you didn't.
Oh, cool, MCU. That's how I feel too. Okay, so Sam heads back to DC, and we see that we catch up to what we saw before the title card. So he's in that suit he was ironing, and he's now at the Smithsonian, and he's giving a speech in Steve's honor that basically says that he was the best and that symbols are nothing without the people to back them up. Sam donates the Captain America shield to the Smithsonian and their exhibit on Steve, trusting that surely the US government would definitely just let the weapon be in a glass box.
Here's the thing, it's not even the weapon, it's like literally that we're coming off of WandaVision, where like central to like the whole thing was that's a fuck ton of vibranium, and vibranium is like a big deal. Like even independent of like the Captain America and like the symbolness of it all, in no universe do they like with what we have all been told about the value of this metal. There's no way that anybody, like government, private, like whatever, would be like, yeah, we're just gonna put this in a case,
in a box. It's fine. Oh, sweet Sam. Sweet Sam.
Like, sir, you had to know that they were going to sub that out for a replica immediately.
He did it. Rhodey is in attendance, which was, I didn't watch any promotional stuff about this. I had no idea that he was going to guest star, so that was pretty cool. And after the event, he chats with Sam and asks why he didn't become the new Captain America, and Sam basically repeats the same thing, that the shield belongs to Steve, that it doesn't feel like it belongs to him. Meanwhile, Bucky Barnes is the other main character in this, and he's having nightmare memories, and we watch one of them in which he murders a bunch of people, including an innocent bystander who just had the misfortune of seeing him murder a bunch of people. So Bucky has recently been pardoned, but has to attend government-mandated therapy. It's another pretty long scene that we watch in which we learn that Bucky has been really alone during this whole time. He has no friends, and that he's also trying to make amends for some of his wrongs. So he has to follow these rules that his therapist gave him to make this amends. So 1, nothing illegal. 2, nobody gets hurt. And 3, I think, is that he has to like say that he is no longer the Winter Soldier. He's James Bucky Barnes, and he's trying to make amends. So we watch him in cutscenes as this plays out with the most recent person he tried to make, or the most recent way he tried to make amends, in which he confronts a senator he put into power as a Hydra pawn. I almost said spawn, which, you know. And we watch him as he does this, and it's a little bit illegal and a little bit of people getting hurt, but I feel like the spirit of the rules were observed. So, he's trying.
Amazing.
Later, Bucky does his thing of stopping a fight in an alley, which is kind of, I think that's the first time we ever see his characters, when he saves Steve Rogers from a fight in an alley. So that was a cool, I don't know if it was a purposeful callback, but I would imagine that it was. But this time he's stopping an older man named Yori from basically arguing with his neighbor. He goes to lunch with this man, Yori, and Yori's a good wingman and gets him a date with the waitress. And during the lunch, Yori gets real sad because something reminds him of his dead son, which is how we figure out that the dead son is the innocent bystander that Bucky killed. So this is part of the way that he's making amends. Bucky goes on his date and they play Battleship, and it's very cute until they get to talk about Yori, and Bucky's trauma and guilt make him walk out on the date to go visit Yori, and we think he's going to confess, but he doesn't actually, not yet. Torres is still tracking down the flag smashers, and he sees them rob a bank in Switzerland, I believe, and he confronts the main guy, but dude has superhuman strength, and Torres gets beat up. Sam goes back home to visit his sisters and nephews, and things aren't going great as the family shrimping business is going under. His sister wants to sell the boat, but Sam doesn't want to lose it, and he doesn't want to lose the house because of the way that she's taken out loans. So he insists that if they go to the bank, his status as Falcon will help them get another loan. It doesn't, though, and we have to sit through this very painful scene of the banker being a fan of Falcon's, but not a fan of his like non-existent credit. So he gets denied his loan. And then we end the episode with Sam and his sister watching news coverage of, the Department of Defense announcing that they need a new Captain America, and they've got one. And his name, I said it before we started streaming, and his name has completely gone from my head at this point. But you guys know it in chat. Yeah, I'm sure you'll put it there. But he's a
Goldie Hawn's son. I don't know.
Goldie Hawn's son. We're so good at this. Anyways, that's the end of the episode.
Great. Yep. Us and names. You know how good we are at that. I just want to say, somebody in the chat, the Smithsonian is the only government agency I trust, so that checks out to me. That's precious. But the real reason I wanted to call it out is just because I'm wearing, this is my Mars rover, but it's an Air and Space Museum sweatshirt, and like I got it like 40% because the little rover, and like 60% because it's an Air and Space Museum sweatshirt. So I too love the Smithsonian, but also as soon as he handed it over, I was like, sir, you know that's not staying in the Smithsonian. Anyway.
Also, I don't know, we're watching so much superhero crap right now, but we've talked because Wonder Woman works at the Smithsonian. So we've had moments of just in chat, you mostly being like, the Smithsonian. Oh, I love it. I miss it. Remember museums?
It's true. Yes. Okay. While we're on this tangent, okay, listen, I'm gonna follow this tangent and say that this is the thing that, like, when I think about all the people that I miss and like how bad I want to be around them, and like how much I'm looking forward to seeing people again, it's like depressing and upsetting. So like most of my post Panini fantasies are not centered on like the people that I'm gonna see. They're like things I'm gonna do, because like they're abstract enough that it doesn't really matter when it happens. Like if it happens in November or like next summer, it's all the same. And so my like go-to daydream is being back in DC and like taking the metro to the Smithsonian and walking around the Air and Space Museum. It's like it's a top tier daydream for me.
So really rude of all of these superhero things to keep being like Smithsonian.
No, it's not fun. I'm sad. Anyway, what are we talking about? Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Episode. Oh, so the first thing we're supposed to say is, did you like it?
Did you like it? Yeah. Did you like it? I just did the whole synopsis. So you first. Did you like it?
Yeah. I mean, it is not WandaVision good, and so like there's the misfortune of it coming off of that. Like I think that if I hadn't just watched WandaVision and just in the context of the MCU movies that I'm watching and stuff, like I did just finish Civil War, and so this does fit kind of nicely. You know, it's not like right after chronologically, but it is it's like the most significant movie for these two characters, I think, right. Outside of Winter Soldier. And so it's like all their stuff is fresh in my brain, and that's helpful. I not only did I just finish Civil War at some point in this rewatch, I think after Winter Soldier, on Disney Plus, there's like you can watch all the extras and bonus features and stuff. They have a little like 3-4 minute featurette thing on Anthony Mackie. It's just like Anthony Mackie goofing off behind the scenes of Winter Soldier. Why this exists? It's just he's the only one who has one of these featurettes. It's just him. But I watched it and it was very charming, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm excited for him. And that boosted my enthusiasm to watch this show. So I don't know. I think it's fun. It's I had a perfectly pleasant time.
Yeah. I had so I didn't really have a lot of investment here going in. Like, I don't care about either of these characters, I would say. I mean, and that's a perfectly fine place to be because there are MCU characters I actively dislike. So for them to just be like solidly in the middle, like I have no feelings about you, is fine. I will say that going back and rewatching, even though the beginning stuff is some of the weaker stuff in the MCU, it has really re-energized me on the MCU. And mostly because this is coming off of watching the entire DCEU, and that stuff was bad.
Mm-hmm.
A lot, I mean, not all of it, but the vast majority of that was bad. So getting back into even the early MCU and being like, this is legitimately good. Like,
Yes.
it's like it's solid and it holds up in a lot of ways. I'm just excited about the MCU again. So I was just excited to do this like new thing,
Mm-hmm.
even though like the characters I'm kind of whatever about. And yeah, this was solid. It was perfectly serviceable. It had like a more, it had a better, or not a better, because I like WandaVision more. And WandaVision sold me immediately. Like the first episode, I was like, amazing. Where this, I'm like, okay, I see where the story is going. It's got like a more normal balance of like fight, punchy, and like character stuff that the
Uh-huh.
MCU is known for. So yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah. Having all of the DCEU stuff is definitely a big thing. Not only because a lot of it is bad, but like the place, in addition to the way that a lot of the individual movies are bad, it fails as an extended universe. It just like abysmally
Right.
fails as that. The like one of the things that is the most frustrating in some of these movies is the way in which it's just like there's no thread here. Like they are trying to establish some sort of thread, but they change things, and so they make the decisions about what they're going to change so inconsistent that I'm just like, I
Right.
don't know what you're doing here. And going back to the MCU like from the beginning, it's like, oh, yeah, like there are like real threads, like real long arcs that they are building. And like, having not read any of the comics and stuff, but now having seen all of the movies multiple times, going back through it, I feel like I can there's stuff that probably comic book people were like, like looking at and picking up, but now it's like when you if you watch a movie before you read the book, but like you read the book and then you go back, it's like I'm like having that experience. Like, ooh, you did that? You got that one right there? That's
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
And being able to catch all of the little things that really were like seeded very early on. And yeah, so that has been very, very pleasant and has also kind of made this experience better just because it's part of this larger thing, which is the overall benefit of like all things MCU. I understand why for a lot of people it's like this is just too fucking much and it's a huge ask, and that's correct. You're not wrong. That's true. That's objectively true. But also now that I'm in it, I'm in it, and like I'm
Right.
I'm 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 here for all of the little side journeys that they want to take me on in this universe. So in that respect, it was really exciting to to have a new thing, be doing a new thing in this universe. Um, WandaVision felt like it was taking more storytelling risks, where this feels well made but standard. Yeah, well made but standard. I will also say though, the other thing that is like really neat about a lot of the MCU movies is the way in which they do. A lot of them do feel like tonally unique depending on who it's about, and so like this definitely had like the vibe of this, even in the first episode, is more Winter Soldier than anything else. Like yes, it does feel similar to a lot of MCU movies in sort of a broad sense, but it really does feel like tied to Winter Soldier more so than other MCU movies. to me.
I would say too that this feels standard in some regards, but I also think that it you can tell that it's doing this thing that, you know, we only have one example, but that you would imagine that the TV series or are where they're going to do some of this more like in-depth character work, because while we have these two sort of like extended like action sequences, you know, between the Falcon stuff and then the Bucky nightmare, the rest of the episode is just this character stuff. You know,
Mm-hmm.
he's struggling with his sister and their family business, and Bucky's in therapy for a very long time. So there are a lot of these like quieter character moments which we don't get a ton of in the movies. We just don't have the time
Mm-hmm.
for a superhero to be in therapy. Like
But so
that's
many of
not
them should be in
but they
therapy.
should be
So
in therapy. And then I mean, we did see a little bit of this in the DCEU when Martha Kent lost her farm, which didn't freaking make sense in that movie. But the entire like question of financially what happens to a superhero, like sure you have Tony Stark and his huge tower and his millions of dollars, and you have Bruce Wayne whose only superpower is being rich, but for the rest of them, how are they paying their bills? So
mm-hmm.
for a TV series to say, well, you still can't get a loan, you know, these are things that I think are still neat and different and not necessarily standard, but also WandaVision did this too. It gave us like this opening that didn't give us a lot in terms of like the series, but I was more hooked on that because it was so weird. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I don't care what you're doing, I'm in. Where this like opened with a lot of questions. It didn't really like elaborate. Obviously, it's just a pilot, but I'm still kind of like, okay, like I'm along for the ride anyways, but it's not, you know, it's fine.
It wouldn't be my ride of choice, but now that I'm on the ride, like it's cool.
It's
My friends
fine.
wanted to get on, so we all, I did it, and now here we are.
Here we are.
Yes. Like we could see an end goal for Wanda. See, we couldn't see an end goal for Wanda until so long because I didn't know what was happening. I had no idea I actually feel like I have a clearer sense. Like Bucky has to process his trauma, and like Sam has
I'm
to
gonna be
embrace like the totality of being the Falcon, and which like probably will also mean like letting go of some past baggage in some type of way, or getting money, I don't know. one of those
getting
two
paid.
things. Getting paid in some fashion, being like, listen, these government contracts are not paying enough, so excuse me, Uncle Sam, I'm gonna need a raise. But yeah, like I have a clearer sense. I understand, generally speaking, where these characters are going to go, but I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
Yeah, I agree. I think so as well. I mean, I have some questions. Like, is it going to be Sam like accepting? Is he going to take on being the new Captain America at the end and passing on Falcon to somebody else, or is the fake out going to be that he won't accept being Captain? So there are like questions like that. But
Yeah.
yes, the end game is what kind of superhero he has to come to terms with being a superhero and following in Steve Rogers' footsteps, sort of thing. And then yeah, Bucky's got his whole trauma deal.
Sorry, I just saw this earlier, Paige. This is the only announced series that you were excited for. That is hilarious to me, because it's the one that I was the most, like, truly the most ambivalent about personally. Even Loki was higher on my list of things that I was looking forward to. I know that that's not the case for you, but for me, this was, if I were to rank the things that I most wanted to see. But yes, I'm here for it now. Not that I was always going to watch this show.
I was gonna say, well, okay, Paige says she's trash for the Captain America trilogy, and I was gonna put her on blast and ask if it was because of the hot men.
Yeah,
like if
because
is it?
Like that's fair, to be clear. Like no, also no, your taste is not questionable because you are trash for the Captain America trilogy. To be clear,
No.
like they're great. I'm here for it. I'm into the Captain America trilogy. I have some problems with Civil War, but that's we don't have enough time. We had a whole podcast, about it. She
It
conceded
is.
it is. It's
She
the
is
hot
in
men.
for the
Yeah.
hot men. I
Uh-huh.
knew it was. I can't. You know. You know your friends sometimes, but I agree. Captain America is one of my favorite Avengers, and I enjoy his trilogy a lot as well. So I just, but these are side characters in
Yeah.
his trilogy that I was
Yes.
just kind of like, fine. I
Yes.
will say that going back and rewatching the first Captain America movie, I had a moment where I was like, oh, like the tragedy of losing Bucky the way that he did in that first movie, like that's really sad. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't think I ever really processed like their relationship and what that all went through. So yeah, back around to it.
Yeah. I also had in watching Civil War too, like Bucky's moments in Civil War. He doesn't really get that much, even though he's like so central to the plot. But the stuff that he does do, his scenes in Civil War, like were genuinely heartbreaking. Or his like lucid scenes in Civil War, so upsetting because it's like yes, that fucking sucks. The like, and there's a bit where T'Challa is asking him like, "Do you even remember them?" And he's like, "I remember everyone." It's just like, oh shit. Yes, I remember everything that I did when I was brainwashed. And
Yeah,
like, yeah, yeah. So yes,
I
it's just that
I
none of
think
those things
too.
had space for me to be like, oh yeah, like I like know
Right,
and love this character. It's just that like those moments
right.
were so small that I could look at them and be like, yes, that like the thing that happened to you is genuinely heartbreaking. I mean, it's also like all the people who were hurt as a consequence of this, like it's terrible, but like that isn't really a choice that you were making, and like yes, that's a lot, but it's just given such little space.
Yeah. And I think that in this episode, so I like I said, the entire concept of superpowered person goes to therapy. I enjoy that. Like I think that is like a really neat take. I didn't not enjoy I was questioning sort of the back and forth between the therapist and Bucky. That one scene, like, I don't know, it was kind of like I don't I haven't processed all of my feelings on it and why I was kind of like, is this good or not? But I will say that all of his feelings that he was expressing about, you know, going from war to war and like I'm alone, like give me a break, basically. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying here, I'm doing my best. Like all of that, I was like, oh, like that I thought was really affecting. And if you stop to think about what that character has been through, like, yeah, this all sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that that was at least it does a good amount of work to get you, you know, or to start introducing that space for you to really come to terms with what the character is and what he's been through. So
Mm-hmm. Yes, Bucky's got lots of traumas to work through. Many years of traumas.
I
Um,
saw Paige mention earlier too that in addition to being here for the hot men, it's the possibility of them exploring a black superhero in the context of America that interested me, to be honest. Uh, I am cautiously hopeful that they will address some of that just because they I don't know how much they're gonna like in so many words address it. I think that there was a bit of like, okay, you know, you've got the black superhero in a bank still not being able to get a loan that you're
mhm,
like, okay, I see what you're doing there, even though they didn't say in so many words, like, you know, this is like the plight of black Americans sort of thing. But I'm cautiously hopeful that they will put some of that in there. And you've got to think that they've got to at least consider some of the optics of passing on from one Captain America to a black Captain America, and you know the DoD pawn being another white man, and like some of those things, like I hope that they contend with them.
uh-huh. Yes, yeah. The bank scene, good, but also there's like to Paige's point, like there's like a whole other thing about in terms of like being a superhero, like more specifically, and like what are the implications like of that, and I hope that that is also part of what they are asking because that is a thing that this show is uniquely situated to do. Like
Right.
many shows can include a scene that like shows like racist like banking, how like that racism persists in many places, but like there are things about this character, like what is unique about this character, right? It is also that he is extremely powerful, and yeah, the idea of him being the one to take up the mantle of like very important white man symbol, like what, I don't know, like what is that, what, yeah. So those are like good questions to ask, and I hope that the show does.
Yes, and I think that's especially true because this first episode went so ham on telling us that America needs its symbol, right? America needs its superhero, and you have that person, which I don't know, I forget, like if he was I don't know what he was, but he is the person who thanks Sam at the Smithsonian and he says, "Thanks for turning the shield in. You did the right thing," basically,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like handing it over and not taking on that mantle. Like, you did the right thing. And then he's the same one who announces the new Captain America, which they had, in their pocket too quickly, if you ask
Mm-hmm.
me. So
Uh-huh.
you got to
Uh-huh.
think this is a long game, getting him to turn it over and then passing it along to somebody else. So I hope that they dig a little deeper there because I think that there is some really great material. And yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, well, especially since like it's not that he is not a he's not a I was about to say he's not a civilian now. Maybe he actually is, because it sounds like he's a contractor. He's a government contractor, not that he's actually re-enlisted. So I guess
Right.
technically he is probably a civilian now. But like he is working for and with the U.S. military in such a way that like it seems like you could have real easily just been like, "Hey man, can you re-enlist or what? Whatever. Can
You're
we?"
happy to take advantage of his like powers and labor and all of that, but Captain America, hand over the shield.
That one's
Let's
not for
explore
you.
that. Let's unpack that a little
Uh-huh,
bit.
uh-huh, uh-huh. Yes, yes. The
So,
composition for the therapy scene felt off.
yeah,
The extreme close-ups made it difficult to read their emotions. Yeah, yes. The shots in the therapy scene were very weird. I do not understand the purpose of I don't under why did they make those choices? I don't know. But
yeah.
I was thinking that the whole time, like during that scene. I was distracted by the framing of every shot in that scene.
And the thing that I'm always like aware of therapy scenes and like just because I think there's a ton of bad representation for therapists and therapy in media. So I was like, ooh, therapy when it came up. And then as I'm watching, the therapist does get a little like combative. And like he calls it out to her and he's like you're mad at me or whatever he says to her. So I'm like, is she like, is this good therapy or bad therapy? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, it feels fine. Like it's neither. It's
Yeah.
like yeah, it's like it's acceptable. It felt like acceptable representation. I feel I'm more, yeah, it's to me it's more the way that it was shot that I found so distracting, and like that is a bad sign. I should not be sitting there thinking about why you shot the things that you shot in what is a very like intimate scene, like in like the I should be thinking about, how Bucky is feeling or whatever. Like it's not, I don't know. There are big action sequences where it does make sense to be like, oh, that's a cool shot. Like where we're thinking about it, is not necessarily a bad sign. This is a context in which it was a bad sign.
And for literally one moment, all you see is like 70% of your screen is her eyeball. And you're just like looking at her eyeball and like in profile as she's talking to Bucky. And I was like, that's a lot of eyeball.
I don't want it. No, thank you. I would like to opt out of this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Honestly, I feel like this is the only analysis that you're going to get of this episode that talks about the eyeball. So quality content
Yeah,
here.
you're welcome. Welcome to the SnarkSquad's really in-depth
Yeah.
analysis here.
Okay. The other interesting thing about this episode is that it starts off and we've got, Sam over here and Bucky over here, and they don't cross paths at all in this. I feel like the therapist mentions like you're ignoring Sam's text to Bucky, but like that's it. So it's really interesting that they start off and they give us an entire episode of them like in their own like little areas.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm here for the Falcon and the like I want the buddy cop thing is
Yeah.
like really
Yes.
if I'm here for anything, I want them together. So I mean, not that I think it's a bad decision. I think it's more like an anticipation thing and it's setting up both of the characters. But when we got to the end, I was like, hey,
They didn't work out. Yes, yeah. I mean, like the trailers make it pretty clear that they are going to be a like, at odds buddy cop, like that they're Sam is going to be too freewheeling, and that, and Bucky's going to be like, we need a plan, and that's going to be like their dynamic, and so like it kind of makes sense in that respect to be like, okay, here they are off on their sort of like separate journeys, before we put them together so that we can see that they're different, I guess. But also separate from that, I think that it is useful because like this episode did set up some, I don't know, like emotional journeys, that like in ways that would be really difficult to do if they were together. Like that you can't,
yeah,
they are both on emotional journeys that they really are, they do have to go on by themselves, that are like distinct from one another, even though like, yes, it is, the catalyst is similar, but they are meaningfully different. And so giving them each the space to be like, this is where this character is at, and this is, what they're dealing with, what they're going through, before we put them together and send them on their little journey.
Okay, something else I liked is that as we continue on this why are you laughing at me? One more thing I like.
I have another one. Just the way you said it made it sound like you were sitting there like, did I like anything? Shit. Oh, I got one. Okay, guys, here we go. Let me tell you one other thing.
Really positive about this whole thing. I'm like working it out. I just, I watched this, I took a nap, and here I am. So my brain is processing real time. Okay, another thing that I liked. Oh crap, I lost it. What did I like? And that in like phase 4 of what we've seen so far is that they do keep contending with like life post blip and the way that looks for everyone. So we see a little bit of that with like Monica and WandaVision like coming back and like stepping back into her life and what that all looked like. And so now here it's not only like these superheroes post Endgame and post blip or whatnot, but like the villains that they're setting up are these organizations that are taking advantage of like post blip chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really neat to like start thinking about, okay, in all the small ways, like, okay, if you were gone for 5 years, you wouldn't have any credit or income, so maybe you can't get a loan. But also in big ways, like, who are the people that would take advantage of this stuff, and what would that look like? And the fact that they have a group of people who liked it better during the blip, too real. Like that is like too good. Yes. So I am enjoying that they're continuing that thread.
Yes, 100%. I will be a strong supporter of any and all ways that these shows continue to acknowledge like the fact of the blip, in like human terms that are not just, in the movies we get like the blip itself, and then we get, the larger than life scale of like, how do we defeat Thanos, how do we undo this thing, but like that is just, that's it's appropriate for like the spectacle of those movies, but I feel like the idea of the blip introduces so many questions about like life in this universe, and it has been really, really cool to see. It was really cool in WandaVision to have that moment of reappearing in a hospital of all places, and just like what was that moment like in a hospital, and then Monica goes back to work, and so there's like a little bit of, okay, well, you're now, your coworkers advanced 5 years in their careers, and you're where you were 5 years ago,
right.
and whatever, and like, and subject to protocols around, we planned for this. If you ever came back, this is the protocol that we had to put together, and whatever, right? So like we had that exploration of it. Like little, and it's like it's not, you know, the point of the thing, but it's part of it. And
It's
again
like tipping
here,
the cat out. Like we
yeah,
get that things would not be the same.
it's
Like
it's a world building detail that I really really
right.
appreciate. Like none of these things, the way in which these things take place and are not actually about the blip. The blip is never the point, but it is a really really important world building detail that they are incorporating, and I hope to see more. I'm really excited actually that there are two teenager shows coming up later. There's the Miss Marvel and the Hawkeye show. Like I'm really curious to see how both of those things also, you know, like what are the implications going to be in those places. I mean, like we got the Far From Home, you know, like that version of it, but I feel like there are
Right.
still there's more, and I'm delighted, you know. We've covered banking, there's all these
Amazing.
amazing little details, so I'm excited.
Yeah. Same.
I spent way too much time thinking about blip credit scores after the bank scene. Yeah. I mean,
You would imagine though that they would put something into place like, okay, everybody's credit score for the past 5 years, like we'll forgive it. Like, damn. Can't
no.
even help us out
Credit
then.
scores are a
Like
garbage system. That's the real, this is really solidifying how nonsense and terrible the idea of a credit
yeah.
score
So
is.
the US government can apparently not help you with your credit scores if you disappeared for 5 years, but they will give you a new Captain America sponsored by the DoD.
I mean, yeah, that checks out. That checks out. Yeah, yes. All I want is a deep post blip policy analysis. Yes. Me too, Miriam. That's the dream. That's what I'm after. I have so many questions about the policy world of post blip. To be clear, I mentioned earlier that like we don't have time to get into my contempt for Civil War and like my I don't know, contempt. It's a good movie, but I have a ton of problems with like I have a policy level problem with Civil War. So yes, unsurprisingly, my big questions, the world building detail that I also long for, is a ton of just a really thorough analysis of the impact of the blip on policy decisions. Both like during the blip, like I would like to know what policy looked like. How did you run a government when half of your population disappeared? Um,
Yeah.
but that's a great question. And then how do you continue to run that government when they show back up again? So
Yeah. And going to like the flag smashers whole thing of like things were better during the blip. You have to imagine that some of that is what happened policy wise. You know, if borders were looser, if your boss disappeared and you can suddenly be in his position, if I don't know, whatever it was that happened during that time that benefited some people way more than it did others, and that now they're like, hey, people are back.
right.
I want to know what those policies were.
Yeah, well, and then, I mean, you think about like spaces being occupied by people, right? And then it's like when suddenly, you know, in 5 years is a long time to sort of like start to move, like to like spread yourselves out into
Mm-hmm.
and like take over and certain spaces and like abandon others and whatnot, and then like people show back up not having had that 5 years, and so like yes, there suddenly becomes like a lot of really complicated questions about like just the allocation of resources. So I'm ready for uh blip poli sci. Give me it.
I think we're going to be disappointed, but I'm ready.
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, to be clear, when I say I'm ready, I'm not expecting it. I'm just saying that that's the fanfic I'm gonna write. Okay, listen.
Right. And any crumbs that they give me, I'm like, thank you. I love it.
Yes, yes. Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Um somebody, yeah, yes. The worst thing about Far From Home was how everybody was just put in the same grade despite the blip. Yes, truly, truly, terrible, tragic.
I keep forgetting my man's name, and I just looked at it again. But the new Captain America is, I just freaking forgot it again. John Walker is his name.
Thank you.
Um, And I was looking at Lana, I was
It's
looking
too
at like
generic. That's
the
not going to. I'm
it's
not gonna.
too
It's too
generic. It's
generic.
John
I
Walker.
can't hold.
I'm sorry if your name is John or Walker. Muddiness apologizes deeply. It just kept floating out from my head. My point here was that as I always pull up like the Wikipedia plot summary to help me craft my own summary, and there were a ton of people's like characters' names that were highlighted, like linked to others. So I'm like, oh, they're like putting a bunch of comic book characters into it. So John Walker is apparently a comic book character who has acted as both a hero and a villain, like across his span of being there. So I'm curious how you think it's going to go here. If it's going to be like more villanesque, or is he going to work together with our guys? I haven't watched anything promotional, so if you have any clues, let me know.
I have no promotional clues. I just like happened to look like when he appeared. I was like, I bet this is like somebody, right? I was
Yeah.
like, I literally like I went to the IMDb page to see, to just to like look up like who this person is, and again, it's like my main takeaway was, oh, that's Goldie Hawn's son. But that's really what mattered to me about all of this. But anyway, the like you know. 2 paragraphs that I read about this character, it seems to me, my guess is villain, both because of the fact that he's credited as US agent specifically, I think matters, question mark. Don't quote me on that. The real reason that I think villain though is just the way that he's being introduced in this episode though. Like that was a
It was
bit
like the camera was looking up at him,
uh-huh.
like in a very like in a shot that was like very add your own dun dun dun. So I was like,
Uh-huh.
ooh, creepy man must be creepy.
Well, and like he's like we spent one of the titular characters. He is introduced in a way that one of our main characters goes, "Oh shit!" Like that, like has that reaction to, you know. So we're like, okay, bad. You right out of the gate, at the very least, his introduction is not pleasant for one of our main characters. So that seems to me like an antagonist intro.
And then taking it back to the beginning of the episode, like thematically, the big speech that Sam gives right up at the top is that symbols are nothing without like the person behind them. So the whole thing is that like Steve Rogers was a stand-up guy, and that's what made Captain America Captain America. So I think what we're going to explore is if you give all of that to somebody who is not a stand-up guy, who is not Steve Rogers, like what does that mean? What does that look like? So
Uh-huh.
I think we might go there. But because he has been both this character, a villain, and sometimes like alongside our heroes, I'm like curious how they will play it. But
Yeah.
it's looking villain.
Miriam says bad guy for sure. Miriam is has been in the comments of WandaVision, was resident I don't know, sharer of like important comic universe contextual details. So if Miriam says bad guy for sure, then I take your word for it. I'm sold. I mean, it helps that I already believed that, but because you are confirming the thing I already believed, great.
Zoomy cameraman votes villain. And then also, Paige points out that people think John looks like the grandpa from Up.
Great. I love it.
Uh-huh. Are you gonna look up a picture?
No, I briefly I thought about it and then I clicked back away. I was like, no, I'll do that later. That's for another time. Yeah, Cap's friends are gonna team up to unseat the bad replacement Cap.
Government Cap.
Government Cap. Yeah, bad times. Oh no, too much pressure. I'm sorry, Miriam. I take it back. Paige is gonna send us the picture. Love that. Can't wait. Very excited to see this content. Is there anything else? Any other thoughts or feelings about this show?
Nope.
Hopefully later we'll have more, but I don't have a lot. It is interesting that the bad Cap is gonna be government Cap, in the context of just like the larger, like, so the way that this is, this is like Captain America 4 is kind of what this is, right? So like and we start out with big government propaganda. I can't speak, with all of Falcon's stuff, but like, seems like we are gonna have like the U.S. government actually maybe be the bad guy in some way if the guy that they pick sucks. I don't know. That would be dope. I would love that. That would earn this show for sure extra. It would get extra credit from me in the final scoring if the U.S. military was the bad guy. So I'm putting that.
The
out
U.S.
there.
military is going to be the new Mephisto. Or every time we have to guess something, we're going to be like, "Is it the U.S. government?"
It's the government. It's the government, right? It's the U.S.
That's
government.
my theory. It's the government.
Yes. Yes, that's great. I can't wait. Maybe government bad will give us more blip poli-sci. Yes, that's really why I'm putting this vibe out there into the universe, is because it feels like the best way to get me more of the blip poli-sci that my heart really wants. So, okay. Any other last thoughts from the chat? If not, I think that's it. I think we're
plug one more time that even though you may not want to watch 4 hours of the Snyder cut of the Justice League, we have both now watched 4 hours of the Snyder cut, and I have so many feelings, which we will share with you tomorrow.
Yeah, listen, you don't have to watch it. You can just come hear our feelings. In fact, I feel like that's the thing, right? Like, we watched it so you don't have to. You can just come hang out with us tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern time and hear all of our feelings about this thing that we watched. I'm very excited to hear. I cannot wait to hear what Sam and Jessica have to say, because truly I cannot. The thing, my like light whatever spoiler tease whatever for this conversation tomorrow is that I genuinely have no idea what anybody but you is going to say. Like, you're the only person whose feelings I have like a gauge for. And honestly, it's not even because of watching the movie. It's just because you've told me some of your feelings. Like, even like after watching the movie, I still would have been like, I don't know. So I'm excited because I have
because
no
there are some like just like, I don't know, things about what this is that make it that bake your feelings right in, but then apart from that, it's longer. It has more space to tell a story. That is just a fact.
Right.
But apart from that, is this actually good? I guess we'll hear from our friends tomorrow.
Yep. I cannot wait. Yes, part of why I only just watched this episode is because it's taken me all day to watch the Snyder cut, Miriam says, and still not entirely done. Yeah, here's the thing. Petition for HBO to let people to turn the chapters into like let people treat it like a season of a TV show, and like let people select, like, I will now watch part 1. Even the experience of watching it would have been improved by like the signals from my app that like you are now moving on to a new episode, like just like the little ways, like the in-app experience of being like, would you like to watch the next episode? I would feel better about having to make that active decision that yes, rather than feeling forced into it.
Yes. Yeah. I took an intermission. It was an 8 hours long one, aka I fell asleep. So
I dyed my hair.
Tomorrow we'll hang out for another hour or two and talk about all of our feelings.
Can't wait. The MCU would never make make a bad movie about the military-industrial complex where the military wasn't bad. Yeah, we'll find out. We'll find out how this fits into the larger narrative of MCU stories about the military-industrial complex. So we will be back here to talk about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier the same time next week, and tomorrow at 2 o'clock to talk about the Snyder Cut. Listen, if you're in your house,
come hang out with us. Because guess where we are? In our houses. Bye. Bye.